The tips at Le Jardin were terrible, but Elsa Miller didn't work there for the money. She worked there for the invisibility. In a city run by cartels and old money, Le Jardin was neutral ground, a place so expensive that the staff were treated like furniture. And that was exactly what Elsa wanted. She wanted to be a ghost. At 24, she had the haunted eyes of a woman who had lived 3 lifetimes. Her blonde hair was dyed a dull brown and pulled back into a severe, unflattering bun. Her uniform was 2 sizes too big, hiding a figure that used to turn heads in high society ballrooms. "Table 1 is open," the manager, frantic and sweating, hissed at her as he shoved a tray of crystal glasses into her hands. "Don't mess this up, Elsa. If you drop a spoon, you don't just lose your job. You might lose a finger." Elsa's stomach churned. Table 1 was permanently reserved for the Blackwood family, Adrian Blackwood, the Don, the man who owned half the ports in the city and had the police commissioner on speed dial. Rumor had it his wife died in childbirth 2 years ago, leaving him with triplets and a heart made of ice. Since then, he had been seen with Isabella, a stunning socialite who claimed to be the only mother the boys needed. "I'll take the back section," Elsa whispered, gripping the tray. "Please, heavy crowds make me anxious." "You'll take table 1, because Jenny called in sick, and you're the only one who doesn't flirt with the customers," the manager snapped. "Move, they're parking the convoy now." Elsa kept her head down, counting the tiles on the floor as she walked. 1, 2, 3, just breathe. You are nobody. You are Elsa Miller, a waitress from out of state. You have no past. The atmosphere in the restaurant shifted instantly. It wasn't a sound. It was a pressure change. The air grew heavy. Conversation died out. The double doors swung open, and 4 men in dark suits entered first, security. They scanned the room with cold, predatory eyes. Then he walked in. Adrian Blackwood was taller than she remembered seeing in the newspapers. He wore a charcoal suit that cost more than Elsa's entire life earnings. His face was sharp, angular, and devastatingly handsome, but his eyes were voids. There was no light in them, only calculation. Beside him walked Isabella, dripping in diamonds, looking bored, and behind them, pushed by 2 nannies, was a massive, custom-made stroller seating 3 toddlers, the Triplets. Elsa felt a sharp pain in her chest, a phantom ache she had woken up with every day for 2 years. She turned away quickly, rushing to the service station to fill water glasses. She couldn't look at babies. It hurt too much. It reminded her of the hospital room, the blood, and the doctor telling her that her baby hadn't made it. "Water, sparkling, room temperature," one of the guards barked at her as she approached the table. Elsa nodded, keeping her gaze strictly on the tablecloth. "Yes, sir." She moved around the table with practiced efficiency. She placed the glass in front of Adrian. He didn't look up. He was scrolling through something on his phone. She moved to Isabella, who didn't even acknowledge her existence. Then, she had to serve the children. The nannies were struggling. The 3 boys, Leo, Liam, and Luca, according to the tabloids, were fussy. They were kicking their legs, their faces red and scrunched up in silent frustration. They looked nothing like Isabella. They had dark curls and piercing blue eyes. Elsa's hand trembled as she placed a plastic cup of apple juice near the first high chair. The boy, Leo, stopped kicking. He froze. His little nose twitched. He turned his head sharply, looking not at the juice, but at Elsa's hand. Elsa pulled back as if burned. She hurried to the next chair. Liam, the second boy, did the same. He went still. His eyes locked onto her wrist, where a faint, star-shaped scar sat, a burn from a cooking accident years ago. "What is wrong with them?" Isabella snapped, looking at the boys with disdain. "Can't you shut them up? They're embarrassing us, Adrian." Adrian didn't look up from his phone. "They're children, Isabella, not dogs." "Well, they're acting like wild animals," she huffed. Elsa felt a surge of protective anger she had no right to feel. She bit her lip and turned to leave. But as she turned, her apron caught on the edge of the third high chair. Luca, the third triplet, reached out. His small, chubby hand grabbed the fabric of her uniform. He didn't let go. Elsa stopped. She looked down. For the first time in 2 years, she looked directly into the eyes of a child. And the world stopped spinning. The connection was electric. It wasn't just a glance, it was a collision of souls. Luca's blue eyes were wide, filled with a confusion and recognition that shouldn't be possible for a 2-year-old. "Let go of the waitress, Luca," Isabella said, her voice shrill. She reached over to swat the boy's hand away. "Don't," Elsa said. The word slipped out before she could stop it. It wasn't a waitress's voice. It was authoritative. Sharp, Adrian's head snapped up. His eyes narrowed, locking onto Elsa for the first time. He didn't see a waitress. He saw a threat, or something else. He analyzed her face, but the brown hair and glasses seemed to fool him. "I mean," Elsa stammered, dropping her voice back to a subservient whisper, I can handle it, Mum. He's just curious about the apron." She gently covered Luca's small hand with hers. Her skin tingled at the contact. A warmth flooded through her, terrifying and beautiful. "It's okay, little one," she whispered, her voice cracking. "It's okay." Luca blinked. His bottom lip trembled. Then the impossible happened. The silence of the restaurant was broken not by the clinking of silverware, but by a sound that made the nannies gasp. Luca was trying to speak. The tabloids had been ruthless about this. The Blackwood heirs were mute, defective, broken by the trauma of losing their mother at birth. Adrian slowly put his phone down. His entire body went rigid. He stared at his son. "Mum," Luca croaked. It was quiet, rusty, but undeniable. Isabella dropped her fork. It clattered loudly against the china. "What did he say?" Luca didn't look at his father. He didn't look at Isabella or the nannies. He pointed a shaking finger directly at Elsa's face. "Mum!" he shouted louder. Suddenly Leo and Liam joined in. It was a chain reaction. "Mum! Mum! Mama!" The 3 boys began to wail, reaching their arms out toward Elsa, straining against the straps of their high chairs. Their cries weren't of pain, but of desperate, heartbreaking longing. Elsa felt the blood drain from her face. Her knees buckled. She knew she should run. She should drop the tray and bolt out the back door. This was dangerous. This was Adrian Blackwood. If he thought she was trying to kidnap or influence his children, he would kill her without a trial. But she couldn't move. Her heart was hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Why, she thought. I've never met them. My baby died. Why are they calling me Mum? Adrian stood up. The chair scraped violently against the floor. The security guards moved instantly, hands going inside their jackets. "Who are you?" Adrian's voice was low, a growl that vibrated through the floorboards. He walked around the table, looming over Elsa. Elsa backed up, hitting the service station. I'm just a waitress. I don't know why they're doing this. I swear, sir, I've never seen them before." "Liar!" Adrian hissed. He wasn't looking at her uniform. He was looking at her eyes. He reached out, his hand moving toward her face. "Adrian, sit down!" Isabella shrieked, standing up. "She probably has candy in her pocket. They're just confused brats. Don't make a scene." "Be quiet, Isabella," Adrian snapped, never breaking eye contact with Elsa. "My sons haven't spoken a word since the day they were born. And today they call a stranger Mum. I don't believe in coincidences." He grabbed Elsa's wrist, the one with the star-shaped burned scar. When his thumb brushed over the scar tissue, Adrian flinched. His eyes widened in genuine shock. He looked from the scar to her face, searching for something beneath the bad dye job and the glasses. "Where did you get this?" he demanded, his grip tightening. A cooking accident," Elsa whimpered. "Please, you're hurting me." "Adrian, let her go." The manager came running over, looking terrified. "I apologize, Mr. Blackwood. She's new. She's clumsy. I'll fire her immediately. Get out, Elsa. Go." She's not going anywhere, Adrian said, his voice deadly calm. He pulled Elsa closer, ignoring the wailing children who were now screaming, "Mama!" like a chant. "Take the boys to the car," Adrian ordered the nannies, his eyes still fixed on Elsa. "No!" Elsa shouted. The scream tore out of her throat. It was primal. The thought of them being taken away caused a physical pain in her gut, so severe she almost doubled over. Adrian froze. He tilted his head. "Why do you care?" I don't know," Elsa sobbed, tears finally spilling over. Don't take them. They're crying for me. Please." Adrian studied her for one agonizing second. Then he turned to his head of security. "Bring the car around. We aren't eating." He looked back at Elsa. "And you're coming with us." "What?" Isabella screamed. "Are you insane? You're bringing a waitress to the manor. She's probably a spy or a stalker." "She's coming," Adrian said with finality. "Because if she doesn't, I have a feeling my sons will tear the city apart, screaming." He didn't wait for her to agree. He gripped her arm and marched her towards the exit, the cries of "Mama" echoing through the silent, stunned restaurant. Elsa was terrified. She knew getting into that car was a death sentence. But as she looked at the tear-streaked faces of the triplets being wheeled out ahead of her, she knew she would walk into hell if it meant being near them for just one more minute. The ride to Blackwood Manor was a suffocating exercise in tension. The convoy of black SUVs sped through the rain-slicked streets of the city, cutting through traffic with aggressive precision. Elsa sat in the back of the lead SUV, sandwiched between two massive security guards. Directly across from her, in the rear-facing seats, sat Adrian Blackwood. He hadn't taken his eyes off her for a single second. It was like sitting across from a panther, waiting for a reason to pounce. But the silence was the strangest part, or rather, the source of the silence. The triplets, who had been screaming bloody murder just 10 minutes ago in the restaurant, were now fast asleep. But they weren't sleeping in their car seats. In a breach of all safety protocols, and seemingly against Adrian's own strict rules, Leo, Liam, and Luca were piled onto Elsa's lap. When the nannies had tried to buckle them into the separate van, the boys had gone into a state of hysteria so severe that Leo had actually turned blue from holding his breath. It was only when Elsa had instinctively reached out and pulled them close that they collapsed, instantly soothed by her scent, her heartbeat, the rhythm of her breathing. Now, Elsa's uniform was stained with tears and drool. Her arms were cramping from the weight of 3 heavy toddlers, but she didn't dare move. She looked down at their sleeping faces, their dark lashes wet, their chests rising and falling in perfect sync. "My babies," her mind whispered. She squeezed her eyes shut. "Stop it," she told herself. "They aren't yours. Yours died. Dr. Sterling showed you the death certificates. He showed you the tiny urns." "You're crying again." Adrian's voice cut through the hum of the engine. It wasn't an accusation, just an observation. Cold, clinical. Elsa quickly wiped a tear from her cheek with her shoulder, unable to move her hands. "I'm sorry, sir. I'm just overwhelmed. I don't know what's happening." Adrian leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. "Neither do I. And I don't like not knowing things." He reached out, not to touch her, but to touch Luca's sleeping head resting on her chest. His fingers brushed against Elsa's collarbone, sending a jolt of electricity through both of them. Adrian pulled back slightly, his eyes narrowing. 2 years ago, Adrian began, his voice low. "My wife died giving birth to them, or rather, the woman I intended to marry. We used a surrogate because of health complications. The surrogate disappeared shortly after the birth. The agency said she wanted a clean break. No contact." Elsa's heart skipped a beat. "That's sad." "Is it?" Adrian studied her face. "You have a scar on your wrist. A star. You said it was a cooking accident." "Yes." "I knew a woman with a scar exactly like that," Adrian said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "But she didn't get it from cooking. She got it from a fireplace poker, defending herself against an intruder who broke into my safe house. Elsa felt the blood drain from her face. A flash of memory assaulted her. Heat, screaming, the smell of burning skin, a man in a ski mask, but it was gone as fast as it came, replaced by the dull fog that had clouded her brain for 2 years. I don't know what you're talking about, she stammered. My name is Elsa Miller. I grew up in Ohio. I moved here last year. We'll see, Adrian said. He tapped the partition window. Rocco, how long? 2 minutes, boss, the driver replied. Good. Have Dr. Sterling waiting in the medical wing, and tell Isabella to stay in the guest house tonight. I don't want her near the boys. Sir, Rocco hesitated. Miss Isabella is already calling her father. She's claiming you've been brainwashed by a low-class servant. Adrian's jaw tightened. Let her call the Pope for all I care. Nobody touches these boys. The car slowed as it passed through massive iron gates. Elsa peered out the tinted window. Blackwood Manor wasn't a house. It was a fortress. Stone walls, armed guards patrolling the perimeter with Rottweilers, and a driveway that seemed to go on for miles. As the car stopped, the door was wrenched open. Don't wake them, Adrian ordered the guards who moved to help. She carries them. Sir, she can't carry 3. I can, Elsa interrupted. Adrenaline gave her strength she didn't know she had. She scooped up the tangle of sleeping limbs, shifting Leo to her hip, holding Liam against her shoulder, and cradling Luca in the crook of her arm. It was heavy, awkward, and exhausted her instantly, but she felt a fierce need to not let go. She stepped out of the car and onto the gravel. The air here smelled of pine and rain. This way, Adrian directed, placing a hand on the small of her back to guide her. The touch felt familiar, painfully familiar. Why do I feel like I've walked this path before? Elsa thought. Why do I know that the 3rd step on the porch creaks? She stepped onto the porch. The 3rd step creaked. Elsa stumbled. Adrian caught her arm. Careful. I knew that would happen, she whispered, staring at the wood. Before Adrian could respond, the front doors flew open. Isabella stood there, her face twisted in a mask of fury that made her beauty look grotesque. You brought the help into the main hall, she shrieked. Have you lost your mind, Adrian? She smells like grease and cheap detergent. At the sound of her shrill voice, the triplets stirred. Luca opened his eyes, saw Isabella, and immediately buried his face into Elsa's neck, whimpering. Shh, Elsa hummed, swaying gently. It's okay. The bad noise is gone. Isabella marched forward, her hand raised as if to slap Elsa. Don't you dare shush me, you little rat. Give me those children. Adrian stepped between them. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. He just radiated a darkness that made the air temperature drop. Isabella, he said softly, if you wake them, you sleep in the kennel. Isabella froze, her hand hovering in the air. She looked at Adrian, then at Elsa, realizing she had lost this battle. But her eyes promised a war. Fine, she spat. Play house with the peasant. But when you realize she's a con artist trying to get a payout, don't come crying to me. She stormed off, her heels clicking loudly on the marble floor. Upstairs, Adrian commanded. The nursery. Elsa followed him up the grand staircase. Her legs were shaking, but the boys were dead weight, totally relaxed in her arms. As they reached the top of the stairs, Elsa instinctively turned left, toward a set of double oak doors. Adrian stopped. He watched her. I didn't tell you which room was the nursery, he said. Elsa froze. I just guessed. It seemed like the brightest room. It's the only room in the hallway with soundproofed walls, Adrian said. You couldn't know that. He walked closer to her, his gaze intense. Who are you, Elsa Miller? And why do my sons look at you like you're the only thing that matters in the world? I don't know, Elsa whispered, tears springing to her eyes again. I swear to you, I don't know. The nursery was larger than Elsa's entire apartment. It was filled with toys that had clearly never been played with, pristine wooden horses, imported electric cars, and shelves of leather-bound books. It felt like a museum, not a room for children. Elsa gently laid the boys down in their oversized cribs. As soon as she tried to pull away, Liam's hand shot out and grabbed her finger. He didn't wake up, but his grip was iron-tight. "Stay," Adrian said from the doorway. He was leaning against the frame, watching. "If you leave, they'll wake up, and I need silence to think." Elsa sat down on a rocking chair next to the cribs. She kept her finger in Liam's hand. "Mr. Blackwood," she began softly, "I need to go home. My shift ended hours ago. My manager. I'm going to lose my job." Adrian let out a dry, humorless laugh. "You don't have a job anymore, Elsa. I bought the restaurant 5 minutes ago on the ride over. I fired the manager for speaking to you disrespectfully." Elsa's jaw dropped. You bought Le Jardin?" "I solve problems," Adrian said, walking into the room. He pulled a chair close to hers. Too close. "Right now, you are a problem. But you are also a solution." "To what?" "To my sons. They are failing to thrive. Doctors say it's emotional neglect, but I give them everything. The best nannies, the best food, the best toys. Nothing works. Until you." He leaned in, his cologne, sandalwood, and expensive tobacco, filling her senses. "I am offering you a job, live-in nanny. Starting salary is $10,000 a month. Cash." Elsa gasped. 10,000? I can't accept that." 20,000, Adrian countered immediately. "And full protection. Nobody touches you. Not Isabella, not the press. Nobody." It was a deal with the devil. Elsa knew that. Being this close to a man like Adrian Blackwood was dangerous. He was a criminal overlord in a designer suit. But looking at the boys, looking at Liam holding her finger, she knew she couldn't leave. "I'll do it," she whispered. "But not for the money. I'll do it for them." "Good." Adrian stood up. "Dr. Sterling is here. He needs to take a blood sample." Elsa stiffened. "Why?" "Standard procedure for staff," Adrian lied smoothly. But his eyes gave him away. He didn't want to check for diseases. He wanted to check for DNA. Elsa hesitated, then held out her free arm. She had nothing to hide. She was Elsa Miller, nobody. A balding, nervous-looking doctor entered the room, took a quick vial of blood, and scurried away as if afraid Adrian might bite him. "Now," Adrian said, "you need to change. Those clothes are filthy." He went to a closet in the corner of the nursery, a closet that seemed oddly out of place. He pulled out a silk robe. It was dusty, as if it hadn't been touched in years. "Wear this for tonight," he said, tossing it to her. Elsa caught the silk. It was a deep emerald green. "Green," she murmured. "My favorite color." Adrian went still. "I know." The air in the room grew heavy again. "What is happening?" Elsa asked, her voice trembling. "Why are you looking at me like I'm a ghost?" "Because you might be," Adrian said enigmatically. "Get changed in the bathroom. I'll watch the boys." Elsa retreated into the ensuite bathroom. As she washed her face in the marble sink, she looked at herself in the mirror. The brown dye was fading at her roots, revealing the natural blonde underneath. The glasses were gone. She put on the green silk robe. It fit perfectly, like a second skin. She reached into the pocket of the robe, expecting it to be empty. But her fingers brushed against something hard and cold. She pulled it out. It was a locket, a silver locket shaped like a heart. Elsa's breath hitched. She knew this locket. But how? Her hands shaking, she pried it open. Inside was a tiny, faded photograph of a man and a woman laughing on a beach. The man was Adrian. He looked younger, happier. His eyes were full of light. And the woman? Elsa stared at the photo, then at her own reflection. The woman in the photo was blonde. She was smiling. She was beautiful, and she had a star-shaped scar on her wrist, clearly visible as she held her hand up to block the sun. Elsa dropped the locket. It hit the tile floor with a loud clink. Suddenly a headache split her skull. It wasn't just a headache, it was like a dam breaking. Images flooded her mind, violent and fast. A wedding dress, Adrian sliding a ring on her finger. I promise to protect you, Elsa. Always. A hospital room. A man in a surgical mask. Not a doctor, a killer. Boss wants the heirs, not the vessel. Get rid of her. Isabella's face, smiling cruelly. You were never good enough for him. Goodbye, Elsa. The car crash, the fire, the pain. Elsa gasped, clutching the sink for support. The memories were jagged, incomplete, but they were real. She wasn't Elsa Miller from Ohio. That was a lie planted in her head by the people who saved her from the wreck, people who she now realized had been paid to keep her hidden. She was Elsa Blackwood, Adrian's wife, the mother of the Triplets. Oh my God, she whispered, covering her mouth. They tried to kill me, and they stole my life. Elsa! Adrian's voice came from the other side of the door. Is everything all right? Elsa panicked. She couldn't tell him. Not yet. If Isabella was involved, who else was? Was Adrian involved? Did he order the hit? Or did he think she was dead? She picked up the locket and shoved it deep into her pocket. She had to play this smart. She was in the lion's den, and she was surrounded by enemies. But she had 3 reasons to fight sleeping in the next room. She opened the door, forcing a calm expression onto her face. I'm fine, she said. Just tired? Adrian was standing by the window, looking out at the dark grounds. He turned to look at her, and for a moment his mask slipped. He looked vulnerable. That robe, he said hoarsely. It belonged to my late wife. You look remarkably like her right now. Maybe she's not as gone as you think, Elsa said, testing the waters. Adrian's expression hardened instantly. She is dead. I buried her. Do not play games with me, Elsa. I tolerate you because of my sons. Do not push your luck. Just then, a commotion erupted downstairs. Shouting. Glass breaking. The door to the nursery burst open. It was Rocco, the head of security. He was bleeding from a cut on his forehead. Boss, Rocco yelled, winded. We have a breach. Perimeter 2 is down. Who is it? Adrian barked, drawing a silver handgun from his waistband in one fluid motion. It's the Russians, Rocco gasped. Petrov's men. And they aren't alone. They have an insider. Who? Isabella, Rocco spat. She opened the gates. She's trying to take the kids by force. Adrian's eyes went black. He turned to Elsa. Get in the closet, he ordered. Take the boys. Go to the panic room behind the false wall. Do not come out until I say the code word. What's the code word? Elsa asked, rushing to the cribs to wake the babies. Adrian looked at her, a strange intensity in his eyes. The code word is Starlight. Elsa froze. Starlight. That was the nickname he used to call her in the flashbacks. Go! Adrian roared, turning toward the hallway as gunfire erupted downstairs. Elsa grabbed the waking, crying triplets, shoving them into the closet just as the sound of heavy boots came thundering down the hall. She wasn't just a nanny anymore. She was a mother protecting her cubs, and God help anyone who tried to get through that door. The panic room was designed to be impenetrable, a steel box buried behind the nursery walls. But as Elsa huddled in the darkness, clutching the 3 trembling boys to her chest, she realized a terrifying truth. A fortress is only as strong as the secrets it keeps, and Isabella knew the secrets. Hush, my loves, hush, Elsa whispered, her lips brushing against Luca's sweaty forehead. The boys were silent now, sensing the mortal danger in the air. Their small hands gripped her silk robe so tightly her skin turned white. Outside the hidden door, the sounds of war raged, the distinctive crack thump of suppressed gunfire, the shattering of antique vases, the guttural shouts of men dying. Then silence. Heavy footsteps approached the nursery. I know you're in there, Isabella's voice drifted through the false wall. It wasn't the shrill voice of a socialite anymore. It was the cold, hard voice of a woman who had sold her soul. Adrian thinks he's so clever with his little codes. But who do you think helped the architect design the renovation? Elsa's blood ran cold. She looked around the cramped space. There was a weapon rack on the wall, but it was empty, stripped, likely by Isabella days ago. Beep, 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 beep. The electronic keypad outside was being punched. Isabella had the override code. The heavy steel door hissed and began to slide open. Elsa didn't think. She didn't plan. The Elsa Miller who served coffee would have cowered in the corner. But the woman inside her, the one who remembered the smell of gunpowder and the vow to protect her children, took over. She gently pushed the boys behind a stack of supply crates. "Stay," she commanded. As the door slid open, revealing the silhouette of a massive Russian mercenary, Elsa didn't scream. She lunged. She grabbed a heavy oxygen tank from the corner of the room and swung it with the force of a desperate mother. Clang! The steel tank connected with the mercenary's knee. He roared, his leg buckling backward. He fell into the panic room, dropping his assault rifle. Elsa scrambled for the gun. Her hands moved with a terrifying familiarity. She didn't fumble. She racked the slide, checked the chamber, and leveled the weapon at the doorway. All in under 2 seconds. Isabella stood in the doorway, her jaw dropping. She was holding a smaller pistol, but she looked like she had never fired it in her life. "You—" Isabella gasped, staring at the waitress holding the rifle with military precision. "You remember." "Get away from my children," Elsa growled. Her voice was unrecognizable. It was guttural, dangerous. "Kill her!" Isabella screamed to the hallway behind her. 2 more men rushed in. Elsa fired. Pop, pop. One man went down, clutching his shoulder. The other dove for cover behind the nursery crib. "Don't shoot the cribs!" Elsa screamed, her heart stopping. She couldn't fire back. The risk of a ricochet hitting the boys was too high. She dropped the rifle and tackled Isabella. They hit the floor hard. Isabella clawed at Elsa's face, her nails digging into the skin. But Elsa was fueled by 2 years of lost time and a mother's rage. She pinned Isabella down, grabbing her wrist and slamming it against the floor, until Isabella dropped her gun. "You stole them!" Elsa screamed, tightening her hands around Isabella's throat. "You stole my life!" "You were dead," Isabella choked out, her face turning purple. "You were supposed to be dead in the crash. I paid them to finish the job." Crash. The window of the nursery exploded inward. Rocco and 3 Blackwood security guards swung in from the roof on rappelling lines, shattering the glass. At the same time, Adrian kicked the nursery door open. He was covered in blood, not his own. He held a silver pistol in each hand. He saw the scene, the Russian mercenary groaning on the floor, the gunman behind the crib surrendering to Rocco, and Elsa, his shy, timid waitress, straddling Isabella, looking like a vengeful angel of death. "Elsa, stop!" Adrian commanded. Elsa froze. She was breathing heavily, her hand still around Isabella's neck. She looked up at Adrian. Her eyes were wild. "She knew the code!" Elsa panted. "She let them in." Adrian walked over. He didn't look at Isabella. He looked at Elsa. He saw the way she held herself. He saw the fire in her eyes. He gently placed a hand on Elsa's shoulder. "I know. Let her go. Death is too easy for her." Elsa released her grip. Isabella gasped for air, coughing violently. "Get the boys," Adrian said softly to Elsa. "Take them downstairs. It's over." Elsa scrambled up and ran to the back of the panic room. The triplets were huddled together, eyes wide, but unharmed. As soon as they saw her, they reached out. "Mama, Mama!" She scooped them up, burying her face in their necks, sobbing with relief. Adrian watched them. He watched the way his sons clung to this stranger. He watched the way she had dismantled a hit squad to save them. He turned to Isabella, who was being hauled up by Rocco. "Take her to the basement," Adrian said, his voice devoid of emotion. "And call Dr. Sterling. I want the DNA results. Now." The grand living room of Blackwood Manor was silent, save for the crackling of the fireplace. The staff had cleaned up the shattered glass, but the tension in the air was thick enough to choke on. Elsa sat on the velvet sofa. The triplets were finally asleep, curled up around her like puppies. She refused to let the nannies take them. She refused to let anyone touch them. Adrian sat across from her in a leather armchair. He had cleaned up, changed his shirt, and bandaged a cut on his arm. He held a glass of whiskey, but he wasn't drinking it. He was staring at her. "Dr. Sterling is on his way down," Adrian said. "I don't need a doctor," Elsa said, her voice hollow. The adrenaline was fading, leaving her exhausted and confused. The memories were swirling, fragments of a life she couldn't quite grasp. "It's not for your health," Adrian said. "It's for the truth." The double doors opened. Dr. Sterling walked in, looking pale. He held a manila envelope in his shaking hands. "Mr. Blackwood," the doctor said, I ran the test 3 times, just to be sure." "Read it," Adrian commanded. "The maternity test," Sterling began, adjusting his glasses. "It confirms with 99.9% probability that Elsa Miller is the biological mother of Leo, Liam, and Luca Blackwood." Elsa let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. She knew it. Her heart had known it since the restaurant. "But—" Sterling hesitated. He looked terrified. "I also ran a comparison against the file we have on record. The file for the late Mrs. Blackwood." Adrian sat forward. The glass in his hand cracked under the pressure of his grip. "And?" "It's a match, sir," Sterling whispered. "Elsa Miller is Elsa Blackwood, your wife." The silence that followed was deafening. Adrian stood up slowly. The glass shards fell from his hand, whiskey dripping onto the expensive rug. He didn't seem to notice. He walked toward Elsa. He looked at her as if seeing her for the first time in 2 years. "How?" he whispered. "I buried you. I identified the body." "Did you?" Elsa asked, her memory finally sharpening into a clear picture. "Or did Isabella identify the body while you were in surgery after the crash?" Adrian stopped. His eyes widened. "I was in a coma for 3 days. Isabella handled the arrangements. She told me you were burned beyond recognition." "I woke up in a clinic in Ohio," Elsa said, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't know who I was. I had no ID, just a scar on my wrist and nightmares of fire. The nurse told me my name was Elsa Miller and that I was a survivor of a house fire. She gave me a bus ticket and told me to never come back to the East Coast." She reached into her pocket and pulled out the silver locket she had found in the robe. "I found this upstairs," she said, opening it to show the picture. "You gave this to me on our honeymoon in Capri. You said it was so I would never forget where home was." Adrian fell to his knees. The most feared man in the city, the Don who made police commissioners tremble, collapsed onto the rug in front of her. He reached out with shaking hands and touched her face. "Starlight," he choked out. "My God, it's you!" He buried his face in her lap, right next to the sleeping boys. His shoulders shook. He was weeping. Elsa hesitated for a moment. The anger was still there. Anger that he hadn't looked harder, that he had let Isabella take her place. But then she looked at the triplets. They were safe because of him. And she was home. She placed her hand on his head, running her fingers through his dark hair. "I'm here, Adrian," she whispered. "I'm here." Suddenly the doors banged open again. Rocco dragged Isabella into the room. She was disheveled, her expensive dress torn, her hands zip-tied behind her back. She looked at the scene, Adrian on his knees, Elsa holding him, and she sneered. "Oh, how touching," Isabella spat. "The reunion of the century." Adrian stood up. The vulnerability vanished instantly, replaced by a cold, demonic rage. He turned to face Isabella. "You told me she died," Adrian said. His voice was so quiet it was terrifying. "You watched me mourn. You watched my sons grow up without a mother. You drugged them to keep them quiet, didn't you? That's why they never spoke." "Oh!" Isabella laughed, a manic, broken sound. "They were defective, just like her. I did what I had to do to save the Blackwood legacy. You needed a queen, Adrian, not a charity case." "You didn't do it for the legacy," Elsa said, standing up. She carefully moved the sleeping boys to the side of the sofa. She walked toward Isabella. "You did it because you wanted him, and you knew as long as I was alive, he would never look at you." Isabella glared at her. "You're nothing. A waitress. A ghost. I am the mother of his children," Elsa said, her voice steel, "and I am the mistress of this house." She turned to Adrian. "Get her out of my sight." Adrian nodded to Rocco. "Take her to the docks. Give her to the Russians she hired. Tell Petrov he can have his refund from her inheritance." Isabella screamed as Rocco dragged her away. "No, Adrian, you can't. They'll kill me. Elsa, help me." Elsa didn't flinch. She watched the doors close, sealing Isabella's fate. The room was quiet again. Adrian walked back to Elsa. He looked at the boys, then at her. "I will spend the rest of my life making up for this," he vowed. "I will burn the world down if I have to, just to make sure you are never hurt again." "You don't need to burn the world, Adrian," Elsa said softly, leaning into his touch. "You just need to be a father." At that moment, Leo stirred on the couch. He sat up, rubbing his eyes. He looked at Adrian, then at Elsa. A sleepy smile spread across his face. "Dada," he whispered, pointing at Adrian. Then he pointed at Elsa. "Mama." And then he pointed to the space between them. "Home." 3 months had passed since the gunfire erupted in the nursery of Blackwood Manor. The seasons had turned, trading the rainy gloom of autumn for the crisp, biting cold of a New York winter. But inside the master suite, everything was warm. Elsa stood before a floor-to-ceiling mirror, framed in gold leaf. The reflection staring back at her felt like a stranger, yet also like an old friend she hadn't seen in years. The woman in the mirror wasn't Elsa Miller, the invisible waitress with the bad dye job and the trembling hands who scraped leftovers off plates at Le Jardin. This woman was Elsa Blackwood. She wore a gown of midnight blue velvet, custom-made in Milan, that draped over her curves like liquid night. The neckline was plunging, daring, but elegant. Around her neck sat a diamond necklace, heavy enough to buy a small island, the heart of the ocean, a family heirloom Adrian had retrieved from the vault the day her memory returned. But the most significant detail wasn't the jewelry or the dress. It was her left wrist. For 2 years, she had hidden the star-shaped burn scar under long sleeves and cheap bracelets, terrified that someone would ask questions she couldn't answer. Tonight, the sleeve of her gown was cut high. The scar was exposed. She had even dusted it with a faint shimmer of silver body powder. It wasn't a mark of victimization anymore. It was a badge of honor. It was the mark that had brought her sons back to her. "You're thinking about the restaurant," a deep voice rumbled from the doorway. Elsa didn't flinch. She smiled at the reflection of her husband as he walked into the room. Adrian Blackwood looked devastating in a tuxedo that fit his broad shoulders with military precision, but the cold, dead look that had defined him for 2 years was gone. In its place was a quiet, burning intensity, a look reserved only for her. "I'm thinking about the people who will be at the gala tonight," Elsa corrected him, turning around. "The same senators, the same socialites, the same business moguls who used to snap their fingers at me to refill their water. They looked through me, Adrian. To them, I was furniture." Adrian stepped closer, his presence filling the room. He reached out, his thumb tracing the line of her jaw. "They won't look through you tonight, Starlight. Tonight, they will bow. And if they don't, Rocco has instructions to escort them out, through the window." Elsa laughed, a genuine bell-like sound that had been absent from this house for too long. "Let's try to avoid defenestration before the appetizers, shall we? No promises." Adrian kissed her forehead, then pulled back, his expression turning serious. Rocco called. He just got back from the trip. The air in the room shifted. The temperature seemed to drop. "Is it done?" Elsa asked softly. Adrian walked over to the fireplace, where a small stack of documents was waiting. He picked up a photograph and handed it to Elsa. It was a grainy, zoomed-in picture taken from a distance. It showed a frozen, grey landscape, a fish processing plant in the deepest, most desolate part of Siberia. In the center of the frame, hunching over a conveyor belt of frozen cod, was a woman. Her once manicured hands were red and raw, wrapped in rags. Her face, stripped of expensive makeup and fillers, was gaunt and hard. She looked 20 years older. Isabella. Petrov was appreciative of the refund, Adrian said, his voice void of pity. She owes him a significant amount of money for the failed hit squad. Since her inheritance was seized by the courts for fraud, she is working off her debt. How long? Elsa asked, staring at the woman who had stolen 2 years of her life. At her current wage? Adrian did a quick mental calculation. Approximately 45 years. She sleeps in a dormitory with the other workers. She eats gruel, and she spends 12 hours a day gutting fish in sub-zero temperatures. She wanted to be treated like royalty, but she forgot that in my world, treason is paid for in blood and sweat. Elsa handed the photo back. She felt a final weight lift off her chest. She didn't feel glee, exactly. She just felt balance. The scales of the universe had tipped back to center. "Burn it," she said. Adrian tossed the photo into the fire. They watched together as Isabella's face curled into ash and disappeared up the chimney. "Mama! Mama! Look!" The heavy oak doors banged open, shattering the somber moment. Chaos ensued as the triplets, escaping the clutches of their nannies, stampeded into the room. They were dressed in miniature tuxedos, looking like 3 tiny, dashing clones of their father. "Look at my shoes," Luca shouted, pointing at his patent leather loafers. "Shiny." "I have a bow tie," Liam announced proudly, touching his neck. "It chokes me a little bit." Leo, always the most affectionate, ran straight for Elsa's legs, burying his face in the velvet of her dress. "Mama, pretty," he declared muffledly. "Like a princess." Elsa knelt down, ignoring the risk of wrinkling her gown. She gathered all 3 of them into a massive hug, inhaling the scent of baby shampoo and innocence. It was still a miracle to her. The noise. For 2 years, the silence of the triplets had been a source of national gossip. Now, they were making up for lost time. "You 3 look very handsome," Elsa told them, kissing 3 foreheads in rapid succession. "Are you going to be good for the nanny tonight while Mummy and Daddy go to the party?" "No," they chorused in unison. Adrian chuckled, crouching down beside them. "If you are good, I will let you ride in the helicopter tomorrow." The boy's eyes went wide. The bribery was effective immediately. "We be good," Luca promised instantly. "Super good." "Excellent negotiating," Elsa whispered to Adrian as he helped her stand back up. "I learned from the best," he winked. The Blackwood Winter Gala was held at the Grand Metro Hotel, a venue dripping with crystal chandeliers and old money. The atmosphere was tense. The city knew that Adrian Blackwood had been reclusive lately. Rumors of a war with the Russians, of a coup within his own house, had been circulating in the tabloids. When the black limousine pulled up to the red carpet, the flashbulbs erupted like a lightning storm. The paparazzi were shouting Adrian's name, hungry for a quote, a picture, anything. The door opened. Adrian stepped out first. He buttoned his jacket, scanning the crowd with a predator's gaze. The shouting died down slightly. Then he turned back to the car and held out his hand. When Elsa stepped out, a collective gasp rippled through the press line. The last time the public had seen Elsa Blackwood, it was in a grainy obituary photo 2 years ago. "Is that? It can't be." "She's dead. I read the report." Elsa gripped Adrian's hand. Her heart was hammering against her ribs, but she kept her chin high. She remembered the manager at Le Jardin yelling at her for dropping a spoon. She remembered the customers who spoke about her as if she were deaf. She looked directly into the camera lenses. "See me now," she thought. They walked the red carpet in silence. It was a power move. No interviews, no explanations. Just presence. Inside the ballroom, the orchestra trailed off as they entered. 500 heads turned. Forks paused halfway to mouths. The silence was absolute. Adrian led her to the center of the room, right beneath the massive chandelier. He gestured to the band leader, who quickly handed him a microphone. "Good evening." Adrian's voice boomed, echoing off the vaulted ceiling. "I see the confusion on your faces. You look as if you've seen a ghost." He wrapped an arm around Elsa's waist, pulling her flush against him. "For 2 years, this city believed the Blackwood family was broken. You believed I was a widower. You sent flowers. You sent cards. Some of you—" His eyes darted to a table of rival business associates, even sent threats, thinking I was weak with grief. The room was so quiet you could hear the ice melting in the champagne buckets. "But the Blackwood family does not break," Adrian declared, his voice hardening. "We simply reload." He looked down at Elsa, his expression softening for everyone to see. "I would like to reintroduce my wife, Elsa Blackwood, the mother of my heirs, the heart of my empire. She was taken from us by treachery, but she fought her way back. She is the strongest person in this room, and from this day forward, her word is my word. You respect her, or you answer to me." He raised his glass. "To Elsa! To Elsa!" the crowd roared back, the fear and awe palpable in their voices. The orchestra struck up a waltz, Elsa's favorite. Adrian handed the microphone back and took her hand. "Ready?" "Always," Elsa whispered. As he swept her onto the dance floor, spinning her beneath the golden lights, Elsa caught sight of her reflection in the darkened window overlooking the city. She saw the velvet, the diamonds, and the man who adored her. But more importantly, she saw herself, not the victim, not the waitress, not the ghost. She was the queen, and her reign was just beginning. What a roller coaster of emotions. From being a ghost waitress serving her own husband to becoming the queen of the Blackwood Empire,